So it's Rick, and this is a quick lesson on the distributive property. So something you might have seen in the past is stuff like, oh, it helps if I write in pencil and not eraser. Something like this in the past, where instead of a multiplication sign like an X, you just see parentheses. And that means multiply. You're not going to see this little X much anymore because you're going to start to see that as a variable. But when you see that, it might not just be on its own. It might be a whole I'm trying to erase at the same time that I talk. You might see something in parentheses besides just a number. So, for instance, this is a thing you might see. And the distributive property talks about how we take a number and multiply it by multiple things inside of a parentheses. So basically, if you think about distribution, you might think of like a warehouse or something like that. We are going to distribute the number to both elements inside of parentheses. So in this particular case, when I simplify this, I'm going to do 2 times x, which would be 2x, and then 2 times 2, which is 4. And I'm going to keep that sign, so using the distributive property here, I would get 2x plus 4. So when they're positive, that's all pretty easy. If I gave you another example where I had like a 5 here, it doesn't have to be x by itself either. I could do 4x plus 3. And if I distribute the 5 to both, I would get 20x, because 5 times 4x, and then 5 times 3 gives me 15. Some of you might like to show the different steps in between, and that's fine. So you could say, it helps if I pick the pencil again, 5 times 4x plus 5 times 3. And then we simplify. Okay? Now, it's when the negative signs get thrown in there that some people find it a little bit more difficult. So, let's say, for instance, I give you 7 times 3x minus 5. I'm going to distribute again and do 7 times 3x. And I'm going to add 7 times negative 5. Now I also don't mind if instead of that you did minus 7 times 5 over there. That's fine either way. But what you need to recognize is that the 7 is going to be multiplied by 5, which is negative. Okay? So I'm going to end up with 21x. 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. So 21x minus 35. Alright, now what happens if the number in front is negative? Okay, so if I get negative 5 times 3x minus 7, something like that, I need to make sure I keep in mind that this is negative 5. Okay, so I'm multiplying by negative 5, so in this case I'm going to get negative 15x, and negative 5 times negative 7. Here, let me actually show the steps here. I'm going to get negative 5 times 3x plus negative 5 times negative 7. Well, that gives me negative 15x. Negative 5 times negative 7 gives me a positive 35. So there's one last example that I want to show you guys, and that's where you just have a negative outside of the parentheses. And a lot of people get really confused when they see this, and they're like, how am I supposed to subtract this whole thing? Well, that we're going to distribute this as if it was a number, and it is a number because what you're seeing here is an understood 1. So it's like there's a negative 1 outside of it. So if I was to distribute negative 1, I would get negative 1 times 2x plus negative 1 times negative 3, and that gives us negative 2x plus 3. So it basically, when you put the negative in front of it, I've also talked about how that means opposite. So we're doing the opposite of 2x, which is negative 2x, and the opposite of negative 3, which is positive 3. So that's the distributive property, and you'll have a separate video where we talk about how to use the distributive property when finding perimeter and area.